Hello and welcome to jasonnewland.com. My name's Jason Newland and this is Q&A Friday. Yeah, please only listen when you can safely close your eyes. This is Let Me Bore You to Sleep. Now, alright, if you're watching the video, I don't know if you've noticed, but the background is now a little bit different. Look, a yellow sofa. Or could it be the old sofa with a yellow throw over it? If I move my chair like this, can you see the reality? Look. If you see, it was only long enough, big enough to cover one half of the sofa. But it definitely makes it look better. You haven't got because it's very worn. It's very old sofa. I actually spoke to a local refuge collector person and mentioned to him that asking if he'd be able to take it away, if I give him a hand, and if he'd be able to sort of take it away for me. And he said, yeah, but depends on how heavy it is. So I might need to get some other help because that is proper heavy. Me and my friend, it was his, so he got another sofa, so he gave me that one. Carried it upstairs, and pretty much, other than the washing machine, it's the heaviest thing I've ever carried. In fact, I'd say that was heavy. That was harder than the washing machine because it was awkward. The washing machine, super heavy, but it was just getting it up the stairs, and there's too much bending. That was probably the worst part of it. With the settee, it was just huge to get in. We got it in, obviously, because it's there. But no, well, I don't necessarily need to get rid of it, get rid of it. I don't have the cover on all the time. Only put it on there for when I make these recordings, because it's not for me really. I'm quite happy just because I don't care what it looks like personally, but I mean, the more videos I make, the more conscious I am of the background being a little bit grim, especially the wall. It looks like mould, but it's not. It's just the back of some soundproofing. Because you can see one side is soundproofing. I've got soundproofing all on this wall in front of me. You can't see. I've got soundproofing over there. I've got soundproofing all on the corner there, which you can't see as well. I've got soundproofing on the door, and I've got soundproofing over there, so behind those bookcases. So there's a lot of soundproofing in this room. It's just, I don't know how well it works, and I don't even know if I really need soundproofing anymore, because it doesn't stop the sound from... It doesn't seem to stop outside sound, because most of the outside sound comes from outside. I guess that's obvious, but because it's the window. And there are ways of soundproofing a window, but unless it's like super, super, super noisy, I generally just leave it in. If it's not too much screaming and stuff. So what was I going to say? So it's Q&A Friday. What I'd like to do is get some more bookshelves. I'd like to get a really big bookcase that goes all the way across from one side of the wall to the other. Doesn't have to be tall. Like 5 foot's fine. But all all the way from one end to the other, or maybe 6 foot, but all the way, so I can reach it, you know, so I can reach 6 foot, so, because I'm 7 foot, all the way from one end to the other, and then just have the books and maybe start my collection up a little bit, because I used to love getting books. I mean, over the years, I literally have had thousands of books, but now I've got, I don't know, a couple of hundred probably. It's hardly any anymore, which is fine, but it's, yeah, quality, not quantity, maybe. So, time for the questions. Where are the questions? Oh, okay, I've only got 4 questions. So the first one is from Anne. Hi Jason, our birthdays are in the same month and we are both Virgos. Do you follow astrology? No. Chris asks, as a sleep hypnosis therapist, what is your take on dreams? They're just dreams. Rick asks, I'm joking, I'm going back. So, I'm going to answer Chris's question as well, and you know what? I'm not into astrology so much, but I used to be. Let me have a look at the name of this Astrology magazine, 80s, because I used to buy a magazine, I forget what it was called, Rare Vintage, nope, Vintage Astrology magazines, 80 magazines, 1980s. I used to get it either every month or every week. ABBA, what's that got to do? Oh, stars, blimey. Astrology, but it was a UK, I think it was a UK magazine, UK. Spider Harvest, Starlog, I mean, it might have actually been called Astrology. Might have been called, I'm just having a look at this, Astrology, Horoscope, Astrology, Prediction. It was called Prediction. Wow. Prediction magazines. Oh, I got all cozy and warm then. Blimey. Prediction magazine is UK's oldest esoteric and astrological magazine, established in 1936 from the same stable as the Financial Times. Wow. Previous editions. Okay. November, I'm going to go back, see if I remember any of the previous editions. 1991. Oh. Previous edition, 1991. Merlin in Black. So I was reading it in the 80s. Oh, so they're not going back any further than 1991. That's a shame. It's a shame. That's a real shame. Because if it's the same magazine as I think it is, I don't think it was a big magazine. It was quite a small magazine, but more like a Reader's Digest kind of thing. But it had loads of stuff on witchcraft, on magic, on horoscopes, on tarot reading, on anything from tea leaf reading to predictions, stuff about Nostradamus. All those, I suppose, psychic readings, spiritualists and things like that. And I used to buy, it might not be the same magazine that I'm thinking of. Then maybe it was Astrology. Esoteric. I mean, that comes under esoteric. Crystal, healing and stuff like that. I think it was by reading the horoscope. I was quite interested in the way that it repeats itself every certain amount of years, as in the dates. So I found out I was born on a Wednesday. Horoscope dates repeating every change. Oh, I'm not explaining this very well because I don't understand it probably, but I used to. So you got the dates, and the dates are the same. Dates become the same every whatever. It makes sense to me. Dates repeating. Okay. Okay. How often in years do calendars repeat with the same date? Here we go. Is it 12? Is it 6? I lose track. What is this? Another accept all cookies. I don't want that. Stop teasing me with cookies. Nice equation, but incorrect. The day for any date advances 1 day per year, 2 days in a leap year, for blah, 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 blah. Right. There used to be a calendar which you could actually just look at it and then just turn it around so you can figure out exactly what day each year was, and it was quite simple to use. But I'm not seeming to find it. So, I mean, in answer to the question, not now. I mean, I do read the horoscopes out. I think the horoscopes you get in newspapers is a little bit... I wouldn't really judge anyone to take those... I wouldn't really take those seriously, because millions of people, will have the same horoscope. So like everybody, all those millions of people are going to have the same thing. So no, obviously not. But I think with real astrology, you can get a map made specifically for you, specifically for if you know the time that you were born, obviously you know the date, but if you know the time, and that, I used to know an astrologist who that was his thing, and he would put together, that was his job, that's what he did, self-employed, and he would put together people's maps, I guess. So their horoscope would be specifically for them, as opposed to vague and generalized like it is in the newspapers. When can I reuse this calendar? Okay, so here we go. The 2025 calendar is reusable in 2031, 2042, 2053, 2059, 2070, 2081. So every 11 years, the calendar is exactly the same. So some people might not know that. I knew this. I've discovered this. That's what I was trying to say earlier, by the way. 87, 2081, 2087. Really? 81 says... Oh, is that because of the leap year, maybe? I don't know. 2098, 2000... 21,010. So there is a pattern where the months, so in 2031, every day will be exactly the same date. So Christmas will be on the same day, your birthday will be on the same day, there'll be exactly the same days in each month. Because I know obviously a leap year is every 4 years, isn't it? So I've actually got a friend who was born in a leap year. So he's always, I think he celebrated I think he celebrated being 15 or something the other day, because he's like 90. And he's like, well, I can understand, because his birthday's on the 31st of I don't know, whatever year there's an extra day in a month. I think it's March, isn't it? So he was born on 31st of March or whatever it was. So he only really gets to celebrate his birthday every 4 years. But we all know he's not really 12 or 13. I mean, what is he? Blimey, probably about 70 now. So I don't know what that would be in dog years, horoscope years. So back to the question. I don't follow astrology, but what I found most interesting about all that stuff is I found all of it interesting, actually. The idea of being able to predict things, the idea of maybe our minds being able to do more than what we realise. I had books on astral travelling. I actually tried astral travelling. Didn't get very far. That's when I realised I was scared of heights. But witchcraft, I got really into that. As a kid. This is not as an adult. So as a kid, very much into Wicca, and I was actually doing, I was doing spells and things like that, and my parents didn't seem to care, so hey, I just did it. I would give my stepmom money, because I had a paper round, or I had a couple of part-time jobs, so I'd give her money and she'd order stuff for me. She'd write a check out and I'd send it, and I'd get these books and these bits and bobs in the post, like incense, various different things that smelled lovely. I got a little bit more into it in 2004 again, but it was more for, I don't know, I used to like going into this magic shop, or I guess it was a sorcerer's shop, kind of, they had incest, but they also had charms, and they had books on magic and things like that. And I got a few books back then, and I was interested in it, because I guess I've always been quite interested in I'm not sure I'd call it paranormal, but abnormal. I like the idea of I like abnormal things that are just a little bit different. And it fitted in, when I was a kid, it fitted in with my belief that I was an alien and that I had special powers. So that's what I used to believe when I was a kid. And I'm not talking about young. I'm talking, 10, 11, 12. So it wasn't, I'm not sure what that was. I think it might have been part of my mental illness. Who knows? Or maybe I was just powerful. And I used to, it used to get me excited. Now, I'm not a very excitable person. Really, I'm quite laid back. So when I get excited, I quite enjoy the feeling of being excited, So if someone's telling me a story, and usually, perhaps I'm not interested normally when people are talking, but sometimes, well, I'm kind of averagely just chatting, shooting the breeze, as it were. And they might mention something that really wakes me up. Like, okay. And unfortunately, because they have grabbed my attention, I might say, well, that's the first interesting thing you've ever said. But I don't mean it like that. It's like it's the first time I've ever been interested in what you said. Again, that doesn't come across very well. But when I'm interested in something, I'm really interested in something. I mean, like it's got all my attention, like completely and nothing else. And I quite like that feeling. I don't get it that often. I've got it now. I'm completely focused on this. But it's, look at Vinny. What's he doing? He almost melts into the background of that sofa cover. He's a little bit similar colour, isn't he? I mean, he's red, but he looks a little bit yellow. A little bit yellow. Yeah. This is a bit of movie. This is what movies do, isn't it? Because if you was watching a movie, you'd think the whole of that sofa was covered in yellow. And there's nothing in the background because the microphone's covering it, but there's actually some package bags that the throw came in, all squashed up in the corner, but you can't see it because the microphone's in the way. And you can't see the elephant behind the bookcase. You see, it's things, it's very, I mean, I could angle the camera in such a way as it looks like there's mainly bookcases, like in the whole room, it's bookcases, but I can't be bothered. Although I think I started off with bookcases in the background when I very first started making videos in 2006. I had this I think I had 3, maybe 4 bookcases in the background, one on the side and then maybe 3 right behind me. And the videos are still there, but some of them, I think the earliest or the oldest video I got is probably April 2007. That's the oldest video that I've got on YouTube. And I think it's in black and white. But you can see my book collection behind me. And I didn't just have book collection. I had DVDs on hypnosis. I had tape courses. All kinds of manuals. All kinds of stuff. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. What was I going to say? I was interested in weird things, or things that perhaps other people found weird and I found fascinating. I think maybe growing up in a kind of science fiction-y kind of world on television, maybe that's part of the reason, I don't know. Star Trek and Logan's Run, the superhero movies like Superman, Batman TV show, although that was a comedy, wasn't it? But Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, and then the TV shows like Sapphire and Steel, and there was a lot of Wonder Woman, things like, it was a lot of the Bionic Man, the Bionic Woman, or the $6 Million Man, the Bionic Woman, the Incredible Hulk. These things that weren't necessarily real to life. Kung Fu. All these things were around when I was little. And, we're going to be shaped by what we watch, what we do, what we see, what we hear, what we listen to, what games we play. It's weird that there's arguments, experts argue about games, about computer games or video games and how it could affect the kids. Like, some saying, it doesn't affect them, some saying it does. Like, of course it does. Everything we do has an effect. What kind of an effect will differ from person to person. It's like, it's obvious. You don't need a PhD to know that. We are affected by everything that goes on in our life. Every communication can have an effect. Maybe slightly, maybe deeply, depends. Maybe it has an effect in that moment and then you just ignore it. Maybe you don't know it has any effect, but it does, psychologically or unconsciously have an effect on how you are as you move forward in your life. So that's why I like watching stuff that isn't potentially positive, for me. Movies and stuff. I like watching movies and TV shows that are dramatic and stuff. But at the same time, I also listen to positivity recordings, and I try and make more like positive stuff as well to even it out a little bit, so that to keep me grounded and to realise what I'm watching isn't real. Because there's a lot of stuff that isn't nice in movies, in TV and stuff. But I think I'm at a much older age where I'm going to be less affected by it. Because I know who I am, kind of. Kind of, do I? I don't know. Do we ever? I don't know. So no, I don't follow astrology, but I used to be interested in those things connected to that world. I mean, maybe call it esoteric. I mean, I never used to really know that word until I was in my 30s. Never used the word esoteric, really. But you could include Buddhism and Taoism. Various religions kind of a part of that, came out of that. A lot of religions have come out of very superstitious, old-fashioned kind of stuff, like mixture. I mean, for example, when Buddhism left, because some people think that Buddhism came from China, which it did not. Some people think Buddhism came from Tibet, which it did not. So, which it did not. So it's India. Buddhism came from India. Padmasambhava. Oh, I know stuff. Wow, I forgot that. So Padmasambhava went from India, I think, to China, and then it kind of spread. But every time it was taken to another country, they molded it and introduced it in a way that fitted in with the original belief of that tribe or that people, whoever the people were. They integrated the Buddhist philosophy into what they were already doing. So you've got Tibetan Buddhism, where they're doing the old bells and the incense and all that stuff, which is not part of Buddhism. Well, it is now, but it wasn't part of Buddhism. It wasn't really a thing. It was introduced. And then you got Chinese Buddhism, and that was different as well. It's still the teachings, and it's still, because it was done by mouth, wasn't it, to start with, for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, I don't know. I mean, it's about 2,500 years old. When did we start writing on paper? Humans. I don't know. But we went centuries, from Jesus, from the various leaders, the main people in different religions, went centuries where it was word of mouth. So a huge amount of what I would say, a huge amount of what is said that the main figure of those religions were supposedly have said has actually just been adapted by people later on. Possibly to suit their own needs. I don't know. Possible. Human beings, as human beings can be. And so, I mean, they did that in this country, didn't they, with the Bible? They changed the Bible in order to control people. And I imagine that's been done with lots of religions. I mean, it is quite a good way to control people. And I kind of understand it. Because, you think hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people's lives weren't great. They didn't have what we have now. So they needed something else. And they needed to believe that there was more than this. And I can understand that. Yeah. I'm just like, if someone's in prison, they need to believe that they're going to be released. If they think they're never going to be released, they've got no hope. But if they have to believe that they're going to be released, and that release is the equivalent of someone pretty much going to heaven, isn't it? Like, there needs to be something better after this, after the situation they're in. Did you know that going to heaven is very much like being released from prison? I didn't know that was going to come out of my mouth today. So yeah, I do like all that stuff. I wouldn't say I believe, I don't disbelieve. And the problem is, well, it's not a problem, but there's so many connections between things. If you look at religion, and then you look at things like witchcraft, and there's so much in common. And then you look at hypnosis, and you look at witchcraft, there's so much in common. It's what came before has evolved into different things. And yeah, I won't go into details what I've noticed, but it's kind of weird, not just in a kind of cute way, I think, in some ways, how someone might be completely against another thing, like dead against it, but at the same time they share so much in common, which as human beings we do, don't we? Or those that are human, they share so much in common. And I find that, another thing I find that quite interesting is some people with their belief system, let's not use religion, belief system, they'll be so nice. And they'll be the nicest person you'll ever meet. They'll do anything to help you. They'll be generous, kind, loving. But if you go against what their belief is, you prod. You push the wrong button, which is, you challenge a belief that is so ingrained in them that maybe they've been raised and brought up with that belief system. So even if they wanted to think differently, even if they wanted their brain to be activated so they could sort of see both sides or to have more intelligence, they're stuck. Because it's not their fault. They've been raised with that belief system. And, there's parts of the world where people that have, let's say, schizophrenia are kept in cages because the people around them think that they're possessed. You know, these people still have it, and they live. That's why I always find it quite interesting. I've noticed, and I've worked with people that are actually from countries working with people in the mental health industry who didn't actually really believe that mental health illness existed. Yet they'd be working in a mental health facility, supporting people that were severely ill, but they didn't actually really believed it. They were brought up to believe that what the patients needed was to be exorcised, get an exorcist to come along and pray and get it out of them, and that they were basically just evil. And I've actually worked with people and met people that work in that environment. I've met doctors that I know for certain didn't believe in mental illness. And it's like, wow, why are you allowed to practice? Surely that should be checked first. Like, if you're going to have a gynecologist, you've got to check that the man, if it's a man, believes, I don't know what they'd have to believe, but that they were respectful towards women, or that that they weren't misogynists or something. Or if, yeah. Or if you got a doctor, you got a. So what did my doctor once say to me? Remember he said, oh yeah, he said, this is years ago. He said, oh, it's okay to smoke. Some people just need to smoke. So what? He said, yeah, some people just need to. It's like, I thought, okay. I had another doctor once had a go at me. He was almost on the verge of shouting, but he was really calm with it. But he looked angry, and we were talking about I was drinking to excess, and it was causing a bit of a problem at the time. And he was saying, well, don't you think I'd like to drink? Don't you think I'd like? What do you think? And he was going on about comparing his life to my life. He said, you think you've got stress? What do you feel it's like for me? 10 hours a day I'm in this place, seeing people with all kinds of issues, blah, 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 blah. Do you don't think I want to go home and get drunk? But then what would my life be like? How good would I be as a doctor? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I felt like I was 5 years old again, being told off by a teacher for weeing on the desk. You know, it's like, strange. It is. I had one doctor, and it's when I moved to this town, when I was doing my course, my university course. And he was a new doctor, so I went there. It's a new surgery, and he said, what medication are you on? At the time, I think I was on antidepressants. And I said, I don't know. He said, what's the name of them? I said, I don't know. He wanted me to know what the chemical name was, what the actual, I think it was Prozac, but he like fluoxetine. He basically wanted me to say fluoxetine. And he gave me a lecture saying, I demand that every single person, all my patients, know exactly what medication they're on, and know the amount they're on, and like the correct name of them. It's like, it's a bit demanding, isn't it? Prescribe them, and I will take. All I need from a doctor is prescribe the correct medication, and I'll take it correctly. But I'm not going to necessarily. I mean, I know now, but I didn't know for years. I didn't know what fluoxetine was, because it used to have Prozac on it, and then now it never has Prozac on it. It just has fluoxetine, because that's just the non-branded name. It's just like Depakote. I have Depakote, but that's the branded name. What it is Is it olanzapine? That's going to annoy me now. Depakote. Okay, first thing that comes up, Valproate, bipolar disorder treatment. So I take it for the bipolar. It's also an anti-epileptic drug as well. So it basically evens out both sides of the brain, which is what anti-epileptic drugs do. They kind of calm the brain down. So this does that with the bipolar. So I've been taking this since 2014. So yeah, 11 years now. And I've been on the fluoxetine by Prozac since 2013. But I was also on it before as well, but I stopped taking it. And then I kind of got back on it again. It's weird. The first time I took antidepressants was in 1995. 30 years ago. 30 years. Crazy. I don't want to be on any of it, but you know what? I've stopped in the past. And then I remember why I take them. That's the one thing. If you want to be reminded why to take them, stop taking them. And then you get reminded why. Why? You know? It's a little bit like, what's the point in washing? Oh, there's no point in washing. I don't need to wash this week. And by the end of the week, you realise why you need to wash. And if you don't realise, other people let you know quite regularly, which is surprising. And eventually the council come round and warn me that I'll be kicked out if I don't have a wash. Not me, but to a person. It might happen to a person. Chris asks, as a sleep hypnosis therapist, what is your take on dreams? Well, I'm really a therapist anymore, am I? I'm just a chatty person now, but I appreciate you saying that. Dream. I've got a few different things to dream. I know what some of the literature and some of the professionals would say about dreams. You know, the old wish fulfilling, or is it just going through stuff that's happened in the daytime, just processing it maybe. I think it's a mixture of everything. I really do. I don't think that it can be a way of working through things, of work, you know, but also it can be things that we're thinking about, maybe concerned about. Because I don't always remember my dreams, to be honest, but when I do, I can kind of figure out, not always, but I don't know, a percentage of the time, maybe 2%, but a percentage of the time I can figure out where the dreams come from. Probably, if it's something I've been concerned about, something I've been worrying about a little bit, giving it a little bit too much attention during my waking day. And then there's other things I dream about, like if I dream about my nan or I dream about Andre. So that's kind of, my stomach's gurgling. So that's something that I do dream about as well. So I think, oh, okay. And sometimes, more recently, I've been dreaming about being in love, which is weird. You know, I've had that a few times. And, you know, those aspects of being in love. So it's, I don't really know what that's about. It has meaning. I do believe it has meaning. It's probably what I want, but it's not anything that I'm pursuing. Also, because I do listen to stuff as I go to sleep, whether it's an audio book, whether it's, and that's more for him really, because if there's no sound when we're in bed, for the first couple of hours, he's hyper sensitive hearing wise, and he will bark at any little thing. Once he's asleep, he don't hear nothing. Like once he's a sound sleeper. So usually if I go to bed at 10, by 12, that's it. I can turn the radio off, or I can turn the audio book off, sometimes music, but not so much. Or I listen to all. I've been listening to YouTube, watching YouTube lectures on chronic pain and stuff like that. So, or hypnosis, or just those kind of subjects. He's gone by 12. If let's say 12 or 1 and he's go to the toilet, I put it on pause. I come back in, and then I look at him and I realise that's it. It's gone. It's just completely crashed out. I can turn it off, and even with the door open, the bedroom door open, I wake up before he does. He needs at least generally 11 hours sleep a night. Believe it or not, that's what he spends about 11 hours in bed. And I get up, have my breakfast, and then the things that would normally disturb him, that would normally get him like, don't. Like someone in the garden, the rubbish being taken from the refuge people, the neighbours coming in and out. Pretty much nothing disturbs him. Doesn't care. Those same sounds at 10 o'clock in the morning, or 11, or at 9 o'clock at night would have him. So he's very, very deep sleeper. When he's relaxed, he's relaxed. He doesn't really care about anything. But what I've noticed is, the reason I'm saying that is, and I've been doing this for a few years now. Well, since I've had him, I've been doing this, 2 years and 4 months. My dreams are often affected by what I'm listening to. So I have to be careful what I listen to, basically. So if I'm listening to a lecture, that's fine, it's educational. If I'm listening to music, then it needs to be relaxing music. Maybe an album I like, but something that I know. I wouldn't listen, certain things I wouldn't listen to. So I wouldn't go to sleep listening to Eminem, because it's very aggressive music, some of it. Although I do like, especially his first 2 albums, love them, still do. But I wouldn't go to sleep listening to that stuff, because I know my mind is potentially going to soak that in. So I need to be completely aware when I'm listening to things like that. If I was listening to an audiobook, again, I need to be a little bit careful what I'm listening to, because I remember I was listening to something once, and there was a section of the book which was not a pleasant subject, which would be fine if I was awake and I was listening to it, because it's important, but at the same time it's not something I want to listen to when I'm asleep, because it could be, I don't want to say the word triggering, but that could be triggering, but it could just instigate me dreaming about that stuff. So what I'm saying basically is, I am affected by what I listen to when I'm in bed. So sometimes I think we can, if we're listening to the radio, we can be a little bit affected by what we hear. That's why I try and keep things light, and I just mess around in my recordings generally. I try not to talk about anything too heavy. But and why with the longer ones it's just me sort of saying counting down and relax, and very that all that stuff for like 10 hours or whatever. And then I suppose there are dreams wish fulfillment. That's probably not the right word, isn't it? Like things that we'd like to happen. So something going perfectly in a dream. Being able to do certain things in a dream that we can't do in real life. So there's, I have those dreams sometimes. I think I do have dreams. We're going into a very weird world because I'm talking about my dream world, but I've got this whole, I'm not going to say a whole world, but there's this certain map of a dream that I've got where I'm living in 3 different places all at the same time. And I don't know why, because only one of the places is a real place that I've lived. Another place is in a building that I once lived. And the other place is somewhere that I've never lived. But it's similar to places I've lived, So in one place I've kind of been kicked out, but I still lived there. And sometimes I go back and they're happy to see me. Other times I have to creep in because I think I've moved out. And I'm going through the process of moving my stuff and put it into bags and my books, and it's weird. And then there's this other place that I live, which was at the YMCA, but I'm not actually living there anymore, but I've still got the flat, and it's just messy, and I don't really live there. But whenever I go there, people are trying to like knock on the door, and I think in one dream I had all these bills, like I hadn't paid the rent for months and months and months, and it's kind of strange because I don't think I never had a flat like that where people, I don't think I ever lived anywhere, unless maybe that was the flat that my stepnan lived in, possibly. But it was weird. So there's that. In fact, that is exactly the same map out as my stepnan used to live in, where I used to live when I was 15. That flat, it is. So it's a YMCA flat, but it's not in the YMCA building. So it is, but it's not. It's not like once you get in there, and there's no step. It's not the same layout. You actually just go up some steps, almost like a doorway, like a shop kind of doorway thing. You go in, but it's the same bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen, the same layout. But my friend's living there in a different dream. He's living there, and then someone else is living there, and there's someone that I don't want to see anymore used to live there, and he might come back, and it's weird. And then the third place is just a room, like a little room in a shared house, which I've done many times over the years. I can't even remember how many shared houses I've lived in. Should we count them? The first one, I'm talking about multiple people, whatever they call it, MPL, or multiple person dwellings, where there's like maybe a 3, 4, 5 bedroom house, and each person's renting a room off the landlord, the owner of the house. So I've done that on a few times. So 1, 2, This when I was younger. So the first one was when I was 18. I'd moved a few times already by that time. 18, I think. So it's 1, 2. So renting a room in a house. So we do that then. It's renting a room in a house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, maybe about 20 different rooms over the years, maybe more. But I've also sort of shared accommodation, sort of like, I had a flat with a friend, so we both like paid the rent equally, well, to start with, and then I lost my job. And then I lived with my dad 3 times for short periods of time. And yeah, probably well over 20 times I've rented rooms. Maybe 25 actually. Had my own my own space where kind of a studio apartment or something like that. So I had my own flat. Well, kind of above the chip shop. So that was when I was 16. And then I had a studio apartment when I was 18. And then yeah, so, and then I had another 3 studios. So that's 5. And then here, really, so that's 6 places that were kind of my own, kind of, as in I could close the door and generally no one else could come in. The one above the chip shop was a little bit different because they had an office up there. So I was still renting the flat, 40 quid a week at the time, 1987. But I had the living room, the bedroom, and the kitchen and the bathroom. But then I think the rules changed, the laws changed or whatever. So, because it was a restaurant, they had to provide a toilet to customers if they wanted. Because it was a restaurant and takeaway. So instead of building a toilet outside or putting a toilet in, they allowed everyone to come and use my bathroom, which wasn't great. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but I didn't really have a choice. And then this place, I've been here for, next month, it'll be 10 years. 10 years. 2015. Blimey. What was the question? What was my take on dreams? Yeah, I think it's an influence of stuff that's happened, thinking things through. It's a mixture of different things. That's what I think. It's just from my experience of noticing my own dreams. Yeah. I mean, I'm no expert, but that's what I would say. It's a mixture of different things. And sometimes it could be things that we're concerned about. Other times it could be things that we want to happen. I guess with me dreaming that I've fallen in love, or it wasn't that as far as that I was in love. And that was the dream. But the person was in love with me as well. And maybe that's something I want. I don't know. But, yeah. So that's for Chris. Thank you. I've got those 2 questions. This has gone on forever, isn't it? Blimey. I think that's answered. So Rick has a question. I have one. What sort of Buddhism were you or are you involved in? You mentioned you were a resident at a centre in your past. I'm just curious which tradition and how does it apply or integrate into your current broadcast. I remember you reading a quote from Geshe Gelsang Gyatso a while back. Oh, thank you. Okay, Rick. I became interested in Buddhism when I was at school. Probably to start with when I was doing religious education, RE. And it seemed to me like the most humane one. Because from what I understood, I mean, I realise that's not necessarily the case, but what I understood at the time is the Buddhists were peaceful people and they didn't go around getting aggressive with people that had different beliefs, and they were passive, and that's something that I quite liked. Each year. And yeah, it just, from my minimal knowledge of it at the time, it seemed to suit me, seemed to be more how I was as a person. I mean, I was definitely a big fan of the teachings of Jesus, very much so when I was younger. And it's just that I struggled with a lot of religious stuff. I struggled with, like what I said earlier, some people could be so lovely, amazing, but then if you go against their beliefs, if you challenge their beliefs, not that I'm really into challenging people's beliefs because none of my business generally, but you do something that goes against their belief system, even if it seems mild and not even offensive, but to them it can be. And that extremism that can happen, that extreme reaction, generally you won't get that with Buddhists, not in the West anyway. I think it can happen in the East. I mean, there's been news stories of Buddhists fighting amongst themselves and stuff. But, I mean, in the Buddhist teachings, you are allowed to defend yourself. You are allowed to defend your country. So it's not like being completely passive all the time. You're not there to just allow someone to bully you, and you are allowed to do whatever it takes to defend your country or defend you. They're not passive, completely passive, but passive generally. Or get into arguments over silly stuff. And if someone doesn't believe, doesn't agree, or completely disagrees with generally with a Buddhist, the Buddhist will say, okay. Depends how advanced their practice is, I suppose. But generally, they just won't care. And that's part of being a Buddhist, part of the training, part of the practice is that, it doesn't really matter, really. But one of the things I wasn't a big fan of with Buddhism was it almost seemed to some of the Buddhists seem to go almost really internal to the point where it was very selfish, and to the point of not really being bothered by what was going on around them. They weren't noticing things that were going around them, that maybe as a human being, as a compassionate person, perhaps they could have really benefited from noticing some of the stuff that was going on around them and helped, as opposed to just not being affected by it. So it's kind of one of those quandaries, one of those paradoxes, where to not be affected by the world, by other humans, by what's going on, to not be affected emotionally can come across as very cold, very inhuman. And I think I've seen some people struggle with compassion and equanimity, really struggle, and they go try and get to the equanimity where they're just fine with everything. But at the same time, there's some things you shouldn't be fine with, and you know, if someone needs your help or someone's in trouble, my personal belief that we all should be there to help that person, not just, oh well, that's life. It's a song, isn't it? I mean, no one wants to hear that, you know. So I was like, oh, can you help me? I've got a car on my leg, can you help me? That's life. That's what the people say. Do, 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 do. No, you need to help them. You need to get the car off their leg. You know, it's standard stuff. But then some people will be like, well, why is a car on the leg? Who's the driver? What they've done this? They want to know all this other information, just as a human being, which is not relevant to what's actually going on now. So having a clear mind is one of the things of being a Buddhist. And it's probably something I struggled with in a sense of my moods changing constantly. And I used to be very reactive. I'm not as reactive as I used to be. A lot less. I'm more calmer than I used to be. But I suppose for me, Buddhism, what was the question? My personal take on Buddhism was personal. For me. And I think it is for everyone. I mean, there's nothing new. I'm not special in that way. But what a lot of Buddhists seem to be looking for and wanting to be is the idea of, I don't know, to say enlightenment, or to be a non-returner. That's in Buddhist terms is because we get reborn. It's not reincarnation. It's reborn. And if someone gets, and it's like the cycle of life, and it's the whatever, and they come back, and eventually, with practice, with studying, with meditation, with good deeds, karma, and all that stuff, they get to the point where this is the last time. So a Buddhist doesn't want to come back. A Buddhist is looking for enlightenment. Like I say, probably a pure Buddhist, someone, regardless of what system they're studying under, they may, again, I'm generalizing, but the idea is to be a non-returner. So you're here, and this is the last time you're here, and you can know that it's done. You won't be returning, and you'll be, I suppose at that point you'd have reached enlightenment in this body, in this world, and then you wouldn't return again. And I never really cared about that. I remember one of the order members once saying, I said to him, I don't want to be perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. And he said, well, you should. No. I've never wanted to be perfect. I don't want to be perfect. It never even entered my mind. I'd like to be better. I'd like to be nicer. I'd like to be kinder. I'd like to be taller. I'd like to have a big... No, but just, I'd like to improve. But I don't want to be perfect. I've never wanted that. I don't believe that even exists. I've met amazing people in the past. But there's no perfection. It's like perfection is just an idea. And I had a friend, he was a Buddhist, and he was amazing. Still is amazing. He's one of these he's been doing it for 30 years. And he's really very kind, very gentle, very sincere person. And I remember, and I used to lean on him a little bit too much when I was younger, telling him my problems and trying to kind of using him for support, emotional support, and perhaps I shouldn't have done. But I was like in my early 30s. I was only really just starting out in the Buddhist world, practicing, and we became friends. And he did say to me, I'm not always going to be around. I'm not always going to be there for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I will let you down at some point. There's going to be times when you call and I'm not able to come. I've got family, and there'll be times when I won't say the right thing. And because I was kind of building him up to be this perfect person. And he's just basically saying that he wasn't perfect. And he knew that. And I realized that, yeah, I kind of already knew that anyway, but it can't be everything for everyone. And I didn't want to be perfect. I wasn't interested in enlightenment, whatever that is. I've actually met people that said they were enlightened, and all I saw was arrogance. So all I heard was arrogance. I mean, there was this, I suppose, an esoteric fair thing where there was people doing things, and I kind of, this lady was selling Buddhist stuff, and she was like shouting out how she was enlightened, and she was, it's weird. So I got involved first of all when I was at school, learned about Buddhism. Then I went to a Buddhist centre in London, part of a religious education trip, day trip to London. Went to a mosque, went to a Sikh places, I don't know what they call it, places. Went to a synagogue, went to a Catholic church, and went to a Buddhist centre. Brilliant day out, a lot of fun. Went to McDonald's for the first time. And I was doing karate at the time. So I was very fascinated with the Buddhists because they also did karate. Because I don't know why, how I brought it up. I think my question was, well, you're passive, but what do you do if someone attacks you? Because in London, and just generally, as a kid, I was 14 or something, what do you do if somebody puts their hands on you? How do you protect yourself if you're a passive person, non-aggressive? And they said, well, we do karate. And he didn't mean that every Buddhist did karate. He just meant they had karate there at the centre, and they all practiced, well, some of them practiced karate. And he said, that way we can look after ourselves and each other. And because I was doing karate, I was super interested. And I kept I was making the other kids laugh because I kept asking question after question. And I kept asking, 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 question after question. And it was more about the karate than the actual Buddhism, to be honest. And then we meditated probably for 5 or 10 minutes. Never meditated before. Didn't really know what meditation. Well, I did know meditation because I'd seen Kung Fu do it in Kung Fu. Kane, and this was in the late 70s. So he was locked up in this sweat box as punishment for fighting or whatever. I think he was in a jail or prison or something. They locked him up and left him in there for like 2 days, and they opened the door expecting him to be, well, not in a good space, and he was just there with his legs crossed, meditating, smiling, absolutely fine. That's when so watching Kung Fu is when I first really learned about meditation. And some of the martial art movies and stuff that I saw. But this was the first time I'd actually ever done it, and I loved it. Really, really, really liked it a lot. And there was the bells, I had incense going, and then there was the bell ding, and they did either they did the mindfulness of breathing or the metta bhavana, I'm not sure. Can't remember. So that was my first taste of they're now called the Triratna, but they used to be called I can't remember now, it's such a long time ago. But that was a London Buddhist centre, which is still there. It's used to be an old fire station, I think. So I had no more contact with Buddhists, and then I met someone in 1989 who was a Buddhist, and he became my best friend, and he would talk about Buddhism, and I was interested, but I saw some of his books that he had, and he had the books that I ended up buying for myself, and it was from Geshe Gyaltsang Gyatso, which is the Tibetan forest or whatever, Buddhist. Anyway, so I kind of got involved there. So my best friend was a Buddhist, and then in the 90s, so I would say late 80s, early 90s, I started to think of myself as a Buddhist. And I was reading philosophy books and stuff like that, and he was giving me books to read and telling me books to buy, and just kind of educational stuff really. And I knew the Buddhist book he had, so I went and bought that in the early 90s, probably 92 maybe. And then I started buying more Buddhist books, got into Zen, got into Taoism, got into Joyful Path to Behold or something? I think I've got a book on my bookcase. But I was reading koans, Japanese Buddha. To be honest, I don't know how much of it I understood. But it was having an effect on me, because I was reading these books and I was taking them to work, and I was reading them at work at break time, and the teachings of the Buddha. There was the Taoism. I very much got into that. So that's kind of what I did in the 90s. Didn't realise, it didn't even enter my mind the whole time I was in London, from pretty much 89 till 2001. But I had a break, and I left and I went back again in 91. But for at least 11 years I was living in London, and there was Buddhist centres. There was a Buddhist centre. The London Buddhist Centre was just up the road. I could have walked it in about an hour, maybe 50 minutes to an hour, so it wasn't a long time to get there, or got a bus. You know, it was walkable, just about. Not really. I mean, probably an hour and a half, to be fair. It's quite a long distance, but it's in Bethnal Green, I think. I lived in Stratford. So it was, 2 stops on the tube, I think? Or was it 1 stop? Bethnal Green, then Mile End? Or Mile End, then Bethnal Green, one of them. So I never went, never thought about going. Yeah, I was buying these Buddhist books. Just didn't know what to choose. Didn't know where to go, and it's just like, so I just read the books, and you know. And then in 2002, so I moved in 2001, September, got a job in insurance. November 2002, I started being ill with anxiety and stuff. So that was October, November. I started going to the Buddhist centre because I used to pass it every day, and it just had like meditation classes, and I'd see it, and sometimes I'd get food in the shop next to it, and it was a gift shop, and I'd go in there as well. But I didn't really think about going to the Buddhist centre because I wasn't really that into Buddhism anymore. It was just like, you know, I'd kind of moved away from it. But I needed something, so I went in there on a Wednesday night, meditation, and I got quite involved in the whole thing. I went from, when I left my job it was the following November 2003, I left my job because I tried to stick with it for a year, but it weren't going well. It was going well, but for me internally it wasn't going so good. And by this time I'd been going to the centre for a year. They knew me, and the people in the shop knew me, so I was given a job. They offered me a job over Christmas, which I did. So I probably did not full-time hours, but enough to get me by. And I worked in the Buddhist shop, which is a gift shop. It was Evolution, it's called. And I worked there until about August the next year. And I did a couple of days, 2-3 days a week, maybe not all day. So I wasn't really at that point earning enough to live on, but I was living on credit cards and stuff. And then I kind of had to leave to get another job again because financially. But I still continued to go to the centre. And in 2004, I got the job in August or September 2004. I got the job in insurance. And then I think it was the March 2005, I moved into the Buddhist community, which was a lot of the people that were working in the Buddhist shop. And it was just it was a shared house really, but it was nicer than a shared house. It was, sometimes we'd eat together, meditate together, hang out together, spend time with each other, get to know each other. And that's something I didn't really do in any of my shared houses. I mean, I do have one of the friends that he lived there, and he said it was just a shared house. But to me, it was more than that. And it was more than that for me. I lived there till 2007, November. So I was there for over 2.5 years. And I didn't want to leave there because I got my university course all sorted. I was going to travel every day to a different town, but it wasn't far, 20 minutes on a train. I had a job all sorted, part-time in a supermarket, and I was going to stay living there. But then things kind of fell apart, and I ended up moving away. But when I did move away, I started going to the Buddhist centre in this town. So that was like November 2007. I started going to the new Buddhist centre, well, my new Buddhist centre. Got to know people, and I started working in the evolution shop in this town as well. So I got to know more different Buddhists. Ironically, one of the Buddhists ended up working there that I knew from the other shop, and ended up marrying one of the ladies who was a manager. So I worked there over a 3-year period, not the whole time, but I was kind of there on and off. And then I continued going to the Buddhist centre. I started using, when I was qualified counsellor, I started using the back room, because there was this like a porter cabin thing behind the Buddhist centre. I started using that for my private practice, and I'd see people for free pain relief as well as counselling as well. And they used to meet up there as well in groups and stuff, but this was what I actually rented it out when I needed it. And then I stopped going regularly before I moved here. So I've not been going regularly. It's ridiculous how quick time goes, but I've not been going regularly for 10 years. I mean, I don't know how long I'm expecting. It's like 10 years. It's just everything's so far away from where I am now. The Buddhist centre used to be literally round the corner from me. For the last 2 addresses I had, it was round the corner. It was 10-minute walk, which is handy, instead of, I think it'd take 3 hours to walk it from here. 2.5 hours. It's a fair walk. I mean, I have been there since I moved there, but it's been ages since I went there. And the thing about it, and they moved as well, they moved to a different address, got their own, just like the one in the other town, moved to a different address, bought their own place. And when I do go there, people don't know who I am. I mean, there's no reason they should, because there's people there that probably feel that, well, they have been there for years themselves. But I go there and I feel like, oh, they're new. But they're not new, I'm the new one, really. I mean, there's probably 20 people, maybe 30 people that are going there that started going maybe 2-3 years ago. So they all feel established, and I'm the new person. Yeah, I've been around since 2002, 2003. 20 odd years I've been going to the centre. Between the two, I used to go to the one here as well as the one is where I lived, because they're quite closely connected between each other, like friendships and stuff. So I used to go to the one here as well during the early 2000s and go on retreat with people that went here. But now I wouldn't know hardly anyone. It's kind of strange. But yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question. How does it apply? How does it apply or integrate into my current broadcast? I would answer that saying that probably everything kind of has an impact on probably what I do, what I say, from a, I mean, like from the philosophical books I've read, psychological books I've read, all the different books I've read, but also the courses I've done, the things I've studied over the years, life experiences, as well as experience of doing this stuff. So it's was it 19 years now that I've been making videos and recordings, audio recordings. So I think it's a mixture of everything, it's like experience of doing it, pulling that experience in. When I was training as a counsellor, I would integrate the things I was learning into my recordings, into my videos, and then once I was trained, perhaps I would integrate things that I learned practicing as a counsellor into my recordings, and maybe feedback I get I'd include, and life experiences, my own experiences with my own health stuff, so it's kind of a mixture of all different things that go into these things, these recordings, and a little dash of creativity, I like to think, a little bit of magic dust of I don't know what. I don't know if I answered your questions, so thanks Anne, Chris and Rick. I hope I answered your questions. I do try. I do. This is the most focused recording I ever do, is a Q&A Friday. I know I go off a little bit sometimes, but I do try and answer. Maria asks, hi, this is the last one. Hi Jason, did you enjoy your school days? No. Right, well it's nice speaking to everyone. So did you enjoy your school days, and what was your favourite subject? I enjoyed junior school. Did not enjoy high school. But saying that, there were times when I loved it. It's so easy that, I didn't like anything, but actually, yeah, there were times when I absolutely loved it. But the aspects of high school I didn't like was the lessons, the teachers, most of the teachers, and probably most of the pupils. But other than that, school was okay. I did like playing with my friends. I did like being naughty. I did like being unruly and just being naughty, being a naughty kid. And, expressing myself, I suppose. So I did quite like that part. But at the same time, I didn't really enjoy it because I was forced to do all this stuff I didn't like. And I've never been a big fan of that. I mean, who has, I suppose, really? Who does love doing stuff they don't enjoy? But I was never, and still the same now, I can't force myself to be interested in something unless I genuinely am. That's just how it works. I have to be interested. And I don't have any control over what I'm interested in. Either it grabs me or it don't. And also that's due to moods as well. So sometimes something that will grab me today, tomorrow I have no interest in, or vice versa. So and it was like that when I was a kid. This old brain of mine has kind of been like that for a long time. It's not a new thing. And favourite subject, I suppose RE. If I had to choose one, I didn't like any of my subjects. None of them. Drama, maybe drama, because I could play around and be silly. But even then, I don't think I learnt a single thing in drama. And all I did was get told off for being naughty. Because to me, it was just dress up. For me, in my mind, it was just Drama was an opportunity for me and my friends to run around, dressing up, hide and seek, all that stuff. Bearing in mind I was, 14 at the time, 15. I wasn't a little kid, but I used to love just messing around. But I didn't take it seriously. I didn't want to be an actor. I didn't really care about any of it. It was just playtime. It was an extension to break time for me. Drama was. RE, I didn't particularly like the drama teachers. They were okay, but they tell me off, but generally just let me just wanted me to keep out of the way, really. I was just a bit of I suppose a bit like a gnat, just a bit of a nuisance to them. And RE, out of all the teachers in high school, I only had 3 teachers in high school that I liked. 2 of them was my RE teachers. I had a man, and he left, I think he retired, and then a lady came and she was brilliant as well. Both of them were lovely. The first one gave me Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, a tape to take home to listen to. I think he made a copy for me so I could have. I mean, that's over and beyond, isn't it? And he was lovely. And I think he understood that maybe I wasn't the average student. I wasn't perhaps wasn't as clever or as quick or whatever as the others. But he knew that when I was interested in something, I was interested. And I did listen. It didn't mean I understood what I was hearing, but I did take notice. And because also I'd come from living with Catholic nuns for a couple of years, I understood religion a bit, that part of religion. And I was also very into like Jesus at that time as well. Very into the New Testament. I read it a lot. I read it a lot when I was in my early, probably 11, 12 time. Really into it. All day, break times at school and when I was at home. But it helped. It helped me. I felt it helped me. And also my dad was undergoing he had a thingy that he had to have removed, and so he was in hospital. It was a very serious operation. I won't go into details, but it's very serious. I was probably about 11 when he had it done, and I was praying. That's what I was, so I was reading the Bible, and I wanted him to recover, and he did. So good. All went well. He's still around now, and he's 79 in a couple of weeks. Not saying me praying wasn't the reason. I'm just saying that it was definitely didn't hurt, did it? That's my attitude. Is like, okay, argue all you like that wishing someone well, praying for them, trying to help them, doing what you can to be kind to someone. It might not help, but it doesn't hurt. Yeah, it might not help them. I spent nearly 10 years trying to help my friend downstairs. In the end, maybe I didn't help him, but I didn't hurt him. And the intention was positive from my perspective. And so praying for someone or meditating for them or whatever, just wishing someone well, hoping the best for someone, sending love to someone, I think it's a wonderful thing. It doesn't matter how beneficial it is. I mean, some would argue it's probably more beneficial for the person who's doing the praying than it is for the person they're praying for. In a sense of it's such a positive thing to do. And that comes back to, again, hypnosis and the power of the law of attraction and all that stuff. There's so much connection between all these different things. I should write a book, shouldn't I? Favourite subject, I would say RE, drama, because I got to play around, but I was not interested in the subject. RE, the first teacher was lovely. The second teacher got me really interested. So the first teacher was very much, he was lovely, but it was very much based on Christianity. Then the second teacher came probably in the third year, and I stayed with her for 3 more years because I took it as a subject as well, because we could have dropped it, but I took it as a subject, even though I didn't do GSC or anything like that, or I didn't do any O-levels rather, because I wasn't academically able to. And again, she didn't give me any hassle for that. She started introducing different religions, but she did it in a way that made more sense to me, like comparing things to Star Wars and the Force in Star Wars, and sort of, I can't do it justice, but she was, amazing. So I really liked her. And she was kind. That's what made the difference. They were both kind to me. Gave me a little bit of time. Didn't talk at me. Didn't expect too much from me. Didn't give me hassle, didn't complain. Didn't all any stuff like that. And the other teacher I really liked, I didn't like the subject, was maths. Mr. Johnson. He was one of the friendliest, loveliest teachers I ever knew in high school. Well, he was, pretty much. The three of them, but I'd say him in some ways, but I'm not going to compare the three. But he was absolutely lovely, and he gave me attention, and he tried to explain things to me, but he was gentle, and he had a big beard as well. That helped, because my dad had a big beard when we first lived with him for the first year, and that was when he was at his nicest. So I associated big beards with friendliness. And then you also had Grizzly Adams, and he had a beard, and he was lovely. It's weird, so that was my brain. And he got ill, and I was starting to learn some stuff, but he got ill and he left. So I had him for like 1 term, I think, in high school, the first year of high school. 1 or 2 terms he left. And then they started getting substitute teachers in. And then I was moved into a dunces class. I don't think they called it that, but that's what remedial or whatever. Me and a bunch of other kids, the problem kids, were moved into this class where we were just left on our own for about 2 or 3 hours at a time to just do what we wanted. It was games to play, and we would just play with each other, just like run around and pretend to get married and play board games and just chat, and that was it. And did that for about a year. Not all day every year, but just for a couple of hours a day every year for about a year it was, I think. Maybe longer. And then eventually I remember the room really well. And I remember then they put us back into normal maths class. And I don't know what the other class is. I feel we might have been taken out of geography or history or something like that. I don't know. But it was definitely maths. So for about nearly a year, we didn't do any maths. But they would give us stuff to do, but we didn't do it. Yeah, so like, okay, everyone, we're going to give you this stuff to study, and then just leave us, and we'd like laugh and just wouldn't do nothing. And they didn't do anything about it, because that's why we were there. That's why we were in that room, because not all of us, but I was in some kids. There was one girl at school, I couldn't believe it. She got away with this. She didn't do one bit of work the whole 5 years she was there. She just sat there, refused to do anything. And in the end, they just gave up on her. I thought she was, I mean, even in my world, that was a bit weird. And then we did, in the last year of school, I was sent to a nursery with her, or like a play group or whatever. So it was like a part of our work experience. And I spent 6 weeks, one on Friday, Thursday or Friday, for 6 weeks, going to this nursery, which was miles away. And I was chosen to go with her. She was nothing like that when she was out of school. She was lovely, chatty, funny, completely different. And I think she said to me, "Don't let anyone know. And I won't be talking to you when we're at school." Okay. We were like best friends when we were out of school, when we were on that day. I learned a lot from that. Anyway, I learned I didn't like walking. Remember that? And we got married. No, we didn't. So I'm going to go. Thank you for listening. I've done all the route. So Maria, I hope I've answered your question. Rick, Chris, and Anne. Wasn't a lot of questions, but I hope I've answered them. So thank you for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you do deserve to be happy. Lots of love. Mwah. Bye. Did I just blow you kisses? I don't normally do that, do I? They're really recording. Mwah. These recordings are going in a different direction to what I thought. See you later.